Imagine this: young black cellist Elias Vance, exhausted but proud after his Juilliard audition, sits in the first-class seat he paid for. Suddenly, a wealthy passenger demands his seat, and the flight attendant, shockingly, his own sister, sides with entitlement. Watch the tension soar as the purser and captain dismiss his valid ticket, prioritizing status over fairness. Feel the disbelief and anger rise as Captain Rostova, without checking facts, threatens security removal, forcing Elias into a humiliating walk of shame off the plane, all caught on camera. What happens when this raw injustice goes viral? Dive into the explosive story of Aura Flight 712 and the reckoning that follows. The recycled air of Aura Airways Flight 712 hummed a low, dissonant note, a backdrop to the carefully curated quiet of the first-class cabin. Elias Vance, cello case secured carefully in the adjacent seat he'd paid extra for, let the vibration seep into him. He closed his eyes, the phantom echoes of his Juilliard audition still resonating in his bones, the soaring highs of the Bach suite, the gut-wrenching melancholy of the Elgar concerto. He was 19, weary but wired, suspended between the ambition-fueled chaos of New York City and the sprawling promise of Los Angeles. Seat 3A, a window seat bathed in the pale morning light, felt like a small pocket of earned peace. He'd barely settled into the plush leather when a shadow fell over him. He opened his eyes to a woman whose elegance was as sharp and brittle as spun glass. Eleanor Sterling, doyenne of a certain stratum of LA society, tapped a diamond-encrusted watch face. Her voice, though pitched low, cut through the cabin's murmur. "Young man, I believe there's been some mistake. This is my customary seat." Her gaze swept over Elias's worn messenger bag and comfortable travel clothes, lingering with faint, undisguised appraisal. Elias offered a polite, tired smile. "Good morning. My ticket says 3A. He held up his boarding pass, the details clear. A flicker of impatience crossed Mrs. Sterling's face. She didn't glance at his pass. "Perhaps," she said, her tone implying impossibility, "but I always sit here." Aura knows this. Before Elias could respond, another figure approached, clad in the crisp navy uniform of Aura Airways. He felt a jolt, sharp and unwelcome, like hitting a wrong note in a silent hall. It was Chloe. His sister. Older by 5 years, estranged by a chasm of unspoken resentments and divergent paths, now a flight attendant whose professional smile felt like a mask sculpted from ice. "Is there an issue, Mrs. Sterling?" Chloe asked, her voice a practiced blend of deference and authority. She studiously avoided Elias's gaze. "This young man is in my seat, Chloe dear," Eleanor said, the familiarity grating. "You know how I prefer the light on this side." Chloe finally turned her eyes towards Elias, but her expression remained opaque. "Elias," she said, the name sounding foreign on her lips, "perhaps you could double-check your boarding pass? Sometimes the gate agents make errors." "It's correct, Chloe," Elias said, his voice quiet but firm. The weariness was evaporating, replaced by a familiar ache, the sting of being questioned, doubted, diminished, now amplified by the unexpected, painful filter of family. "Seat 3A. Booked weeks ago." Chloe's smile tightened. She leaned slightly closer to Mrs. Sterling. "Let me see what I can do. We value our preferred guests." She straightened, turning back to Elias, her professional veneer hardening. "Sir, while we sort this out, perhaps you'd be more comfortable in 7B? It's still a first-class seat." "This is my seat," Elias repeated, the simple statement feeling suddenly monumental. He wasn't just defending a piece of real estate, he was defending his right to occupy the space he'd legitimately secured. From the galley, Mark Ashton, the purser, emerged. He was sharp-featured, his movements precise, his eyes scanning the situation with an air of someone assessing a minor logistical snag that required efficient, unemotional disposal. Chloe quickly briefed him in hushed tones, gesturing subtly between Elias and Eleanor. Ashton nodded, his gaze falling on Elias with the cool detachment of a problem solver. "Sir," Ashton addressed Elias, his tone leaving no room for negotiation, "we need to resolve this quickly for an on-time departure. Please cooperate with the flight attendant." The implication hung heavy. Elias was the disruption, the anomaly in the otherwise smooth operation of preferential treatment. The cabin, once humming, felt suddenly, suffocatingly silent. The silence stretched, taut and uncomfortable. Eyes flickered towards them, curious, annoyed, indifferent. Elias felt the weight of those gazes, the unspoken judgments. He looked at Chloe, searching for a flicker of recognition, of shared history, of the bond that surely must still exist beneath the uniform and the practiced neutrality. He found nothing but a smooth, impenetrable surface. "Mark," Elias said, addressing the purser directly, keeping his voice level despite the tremor starting in his hands, "my ticket is valid. 3A, you can verify it in your system." "I'm not moving." Ashton's expression didn't change. "Our priority is passenger comfort and timely departure. Mrs. Sterling is one of our most loyal clients. We have an alternative first-class seat available for you, so loyalty negates a confirmed booking?" Elias countered, the injustice sharpening his tone. "My comfort isn't a priority." Across the aisle, Ben Carter, a software engineer nursing a pre-flight coffee, shifted uncomfortably. He disliked confrontation, but something about the scene felt deeply wrong. The casual dismissal, the obvious deference based on perceived status, the young man's quiet but firm insistence. Almost instinctively, he pulled out his phone, angling it discreetly, and hit the Go Live button on a private social media feed he shared with a few dozen tech friends. The caption was simple: "Weird scene on Aura 712. Chloe stepped forward again, her voice dropping slightly, carrying a false note of concern. "Elias, please don't make this difficult. Just take the other seat for now. We can discuss it later." "There's nothing to discuss later, Chloe," Elias said, the use of her name a deliberate breach of the impersonal wall she directed. "This is my seat." Ashton sighed, a theatrical display of dwindling patience. He lifted his internal communicator. "Captain Rostova, request your presence in the first-class cabin." Passenger refusing to cooperate with seating assignment. Minutes later, Captain Eva Rostova emerged from the cockpit. Her presence commanded attention: crisp uniform, stern features, an air of absolute authority honed by years navigating complex machinery and unpredictable skies. Ashton and Chloe conferred with her briefly, their voices low, their body language conveying a clear narrative: recalcitrant passenger, valued client inconvenience. Captain Rostova approached Elias, her eyes assessing him quickly. "Son," she said, the word paternalistic despite her gender, "I understand there's some confusion, but we need to clear the aisle. My purser has offered you another seat. Take it, or I'll have to consider you a disruptive passenger." There was no inquiry, no request to see his ticket, just an immediate acceptance of her crew's version and a swift move towards resolution, her resolution. Elias felt a cold wave wash over him. The captain, the ultimate authority, hadn't even paused to verify the facts. He was already judged, his claim dismissed. "Captain," he said, his voice strained, "I have a valid ticket for this seat. I am not being disruptive. I am simply asking you to honor my booking." "You are delaying this flight," Rostova stated flatly. "Security can resolve this on the ground if you prefer." She nodded towards Ashton. Two airport security officers, summoned discreetly, appeared at the cabin door. The finality of it struck Elias. He looked at Chloe one last time, a silent plea that went unanswered. Her face was a carefully blank mask. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of a struggle. Slowly, deliberately, Elias gathered his messenger bag. He glanced at the cello case, a silent testament to the dream he'd just poured his soul into, now seemingly irrelevant. "Fine," he said, the word barely a whisper. As he walked down the aisle, escorted by security, the faces blurred, averted eyes, frowns, Eleanor Sterling settling into seat 3A with a satisfied sigh, and Ben Carter's phone still held steady, capturing his quiet, humiliating exit. The clicks of the phone camera shutters from other passengers felt like tiny, sharp impacts against his skin. He stepped onto the jet bridge, the mundane corridor suddenly feeling like a walk of shame, the drone of the nearby engines roaring in his ears, drowning out the fading echoes of Bach and Elgar. Ben Carter ended his live stream as Elias disappeared down the jet bridge, his hands slightly shaky. He hadn't expected much, maybe a few sarcastic comments from his coder buddies. But within minutes, his phone started buzzing uncontrollably. Friends were sharing the link. Then friends of friends. Someone ripped the video and posted it to a major platform with the caption, "Young black musician kicked off Aura flight for wealthy white woman. Flight attendant is his sister." The addition of the familial betrayal was nitroglycerin. The video, raw and unedited, captured the quiet dignity of Elias, the brittle entitlement of Eleanor Sterling, the chilling professional coldness of Chloe and Ashton, and the swift, unquestioning judgment of Captain Rostova. It wasn't a polished exposé, it was immediate, visceral, and damning. By the time Flight 712 taxied for takeoff, #Aura Airlines fail and #Justice for Elias were trending. The shaky footage was everywhere: news aggregators, celebrity feeds, activist networks. The comments sections exploded with outrage, theories, and demands for accountability. Aura's carefully cultivated image of serene luxury shattered against the harsh reality of Ben Carter's smartphone video. In her university office, surrounded by books on social stratification and systemic inequality, Dr. Lena Vance took a call from a frantic colleague who had seen the video. Lena, Elias's mother, listened in stunned silence, the academic detachment she usually maintained dissolving into a primal wave of maternal fury and profound sorrow. This wasn't just another case study, this was her son, treated as less than, dismissed, humiliated, and by his own sister. The betrayal cut deeper than any sociological analysis could explain. Aura Airways corporate headquarters went into emergency lockdown. Phones rang incessantly. The PR department drafted frantic, vague statements about investigating the incident and commitment to customer service, but the words rang hollow against the stark visuals circulating online. CEO Harrison Bell, a man accustomed to navigating market turbulence, found himself facing a reputational inferno ignited by a single passenger's live stream and fueled by deep-seated public frustration with perceived injustice. There was no major investor to appease or threaten withdrawal this time. The pressure was diffuse, chaotic, and overwhelming, the collective voice of public opinion, amplified a millionfold online. Dr. Lena Vance, however, wasn't just a mother, she was a respected public intellectual. After ensuring Elias was safe and relatively composed, a difficult task, she began to write. Not a fiery screed, but a measured, powerful op-ed connecting Elias's experience to broader patterns of bias, the subtle ways appearance dictates assumptions, how institutional procedures can mask prejudice, how politeness can be weaponized, and how silence, especially familial silence, becomes complicity. She didn't need threats. Her currency was moral clarity and the power of articulated truth. She submitted it to a major national newspaper. Meanwhile, on social media, armchair detectives identified Chloe Vance. Her profile was flooded with vitriol. Others dug into Eleanor Sterling's philanthropic activities, questioning her position on various charity boards. Mark Ashton and Captain Rostova remained anonymous for now, but the pressure was building within Aura Airways for names and accountability. The digital wildfire raged, consuming Aura's reputation and forcing an uncomfortable reckoning far beyond the confines of Flight 712. The viral storm showed no signs of abating. Aura Airways, cornered by plummeting public approval and relentless media scrutiny, issued a formal apology, acknowledging a failure to uphold our values, and promising a thorough internal review. They announced the suspension, pending investigation, of the flight attendant and purser involved. Captain Rostova was placed on administrative leave. These felt like necessary sacrifices, offered up to quell the outrage, but the underlying issues remained. Dr. Lena Vance's op-ed landed like a perfectly aimed intellectual strike. It elevated the conversation beyond a single incident, framing it within the complex tapestry of American social dynamics. It resonated deeply, shared by academics, activists, and ordinary people who recognized echoes of their own experiences or fears. It provided context, nuance, and a powerful call for introspection, not just within Aura Airways, but society-wide. The ripples spread outwards, disrupting lives with quiet force. Chloe Vance found herself isolated. Colleagues offered strained sympathies or avoided her altogether. Friends grew distant. Her social media became a wasteland of blocked accounts and hateful messages. The professional ambition that had perhaps driven her to prioritize a VIP over her brother, or perhaps a deeper, more complex resentment, now seemed a catastrophic miscalculation. She was adrift, caught between professional ruin and familial fracture, the icy composure she'd maintained on the flight having shattered internally, leaving only sharp edges of guilt and defensiveness. Mark Ashton saw his fast-tracked career trajectory stall indefinitely. The suspension was a black mark, the association with the viral incident toxic. His calculated efficiency, once praised, was now viewed as cold indifference. He retreated, blaming the situation, the passenger, the captain, anyone but his own role in escalating a situation that demanded empathy, not rigid procedure. Captain Eva Rostova faced a review board. Her years of service, her technical skill, none of it could entirely shield her from the fallout of her split-second decision to back her crew without verifying the passenger's claim. The incident exposed a potential blind spot, a possible susceptibility to the subtle biases that permeate even the most structured environments. Her authority felt diminished, her future uncertain. Eleanor Sterling, accustomed to moving through the world cushioned by wealth and status, found herself facing uncomfortable questions. Invitations dwindled. Whispers followed her at galas. A position on a prestigious museum board was suddenly under review. The seat she had so imperiously claimed now felt like a locus of public shame, a symbol of an entitlement she'd never before been forced to examine. Elias, meanwhile, tried to process the whirlwind. The public support was overwhelming, validating, yet strangely distant. The core wound wasn't the ejection from the flight, but Chloe's betrayal. He poured his confusion, hurt, and anger into his music. The notes that emerged were darker, more complex, imbued with a dissonant energy he hadn't possessed before the audition, before Seat 3A. He spoke at length with his mother, not just about the incident, but about the years of unspoken tension with Chloe, the different ways they navigated the world, the choices that led them to that moment of confrontation. Healing felt distant, uncertain. Justice, too, felt amorphous. Was suspending staff enough? Was public shaming productive? What did accountability truly look like beyond the immediate consequences? 6 months later. The relentless glare of the news cycle had moved on, but the echoes of Flight 712 lingered. Aura Airways had implemented mandatory empathy and bias training, revised its customer service protocols, and settled a confidential lawsuit brought by Elias. Their marketing now heavily featured diverse faces and emphasized treating every passenger with dignity. Whether the changes were genuine or cosmetic remained a subject of quiet debate among travelers and industry watchers. CEO Harrison Bell spoke publicly about lessons learned, about transformation, but the practiced smoothness of his delivery left some unconvinced. Chloe Vance was no longer with Aura Airways. She'd resigned before the investigation concluded, retreating from public view. Rumors placed her working a quiet administrative job in a different city, the ambition seemingly extinguished. Whether she had ever attempted to contact Elias remained unknown between them. Mark Ashton was quietly let go after his suspension, the airline citing restructuring. He struggled to find comparable work, the digital ghost of the incident haunting his resume. Captain Rostova was eventually reinstated after extensive retraining and counseling, but flew less prominent routes, her commands subtly diminished. Eleanor Sterling kept a lower profile, focusing on smaller, private charities, the incident a permanent, if unspoken, asterisk on her social standing. Ben Carter occasionally saw his shaky video resurface in compilations about viral moments or corporate accountability, a strange footnote to his otherwise ordinary life. Dr. Lena Vance continued her work, the incident lending a sharper, more personal edge to her analyses of power, privilege, and prejudice. She knew systemic change was glacial, measured in inches, not miles. One cool evening in Los Angeles, Elias performed at a small, respected venue. The audience was rapt, drawn into the complex, emotionally charged soundscape he conjured from his cello. The music spoke of struggle, of beauty found in brokenness, of questions without easy answers. As he took his bow, applause washing over him, his eyes scanned the dimly lit room. Near the back, partially obscured by a pillar, he thought he saw a familiar figure, the tilt of a head, a certain posture. Chloe? His heart gave a painful lurch. He held the gaze for a split second, but the figure shifted, turning away before he could be sure, melting back into the shadows and out the door. Was it her? Did it matter? He lowered his cello, the applause fading in his ears. He had his music, his path forward, forever shaped by the turbulence at 30,000 feet. Aura Airways had its new protocols, its carefully worded apologies. Society had its fleeting moment of outrage, its ongoing, fractured conversation. Justice hadn't arrived like a triumphant fanfare. It lingered like a question mark, a complex chord hanging unresolved in the air. Had anything truly changed in the spaces between people, in the assumptions made in a glance, in the value assigned to one human being over another? Or was this just an intermission, a brief pause before the next act in the long, difficult opera of human dignity? The answer, Elias knew, wasn't in the headlines or the corporate statements. It was in the quiet choices made every day, in every interaction, long after the spotlight had dimmed.